So good evening, everyone. My name is Alicia Poon. I'm the curator of education at the Indian Arts Research Center. So I just want to take a minute to welcome you to the third installation of the 2018 speaker series, Trailblazers and Boundary Breakers, Honoring Native Women in Art. So this series, which this year honors artist Nora Naranjo Morris, is part of her 40th year anniversary. And you guys will notice some flyers on your seats inviting you to a grand celebration at the Poe Museum on June 22nd. So take a look, and I hope you'll join us. But we're really glad that you're here today and joining us for this important event. And I'm really heartened to see how many of you were with us last week. So last week, as you all know, we took a dive into the past, exploring the artistic lives of three women born in the 19th century, Edmonia Lewis, Angel Decora, and Tunita Pena. And tonight we are going to wade into the 20th century as we bring three groundbreaking artists who are here to speak for themselves with us tonight. So tonight's moderator is Dr. Deana Dartt, and like last week, while she will introduce you to our panelists, it's my absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce you to her. So Deana Dartt, who belongs to the coastal band of the Chumash Nation, received her PhD in cultural anthropology and a certificate in museum studies from the University of Oregon. She served as curator of Native American ethnology at the University of Washington's Burke Museum of Natural History and Culture and assistant professor of American Indian Studies. She served there until 2012. From 2012 to 16, she served as the curator of Native American art at the Portland Art Museum in Oregon. And today, she manages her business, Live Oak Curatorial Consulting, an exhibit research and design firm in Portland. Deana is SAR's current Anne Ray Resident Scholar, where she is revising her dissertation manuscript for publication with the University of Nebraska Press. So please join me in welcoming Deana Dartt.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And the first thing that I like to do whenever I speak is acknowledge the people of the land. Tonight we're standing on Pueblo land, the historic ancestral homeland of the people now known as the Huaque and Tsuke Pueblo Tewa speaking people. So thank you to those folks for allowing us to be here and do this good work. Can you hear me okay back there, Danny? And also the people occupying this land now is the School for Advanced Research, and they're doing such great work. Thank you to Alicia and to Brian Bio, to Daniel for the fantastic they work at the Indian Arts Research Center, and kudos to you all for pulling together an incredible month of Native women artists and speakers. I'm honored to be a resident here, to be able to participate and to get to know these folks. And then these women, I mean, I'm a little nervous tonight, and it's not because of you all, it's because of these ladies here. I mean, these are women who have truly been trailblazers and boundary breakers. And Connie, I've just met tonight. Linda, I don't know very well, but obviously I know both of their work very well. And then Lillian, I've had the great pleasure of working with in Portland, and she serves on the Native American Advisory Board at the Portland Art Museum. And so we've become good friends. And it's just an honor to be moderating this panel here tonight. So I'm going to try to stick to the script now, because otherwise I'll just go on and on. Building upon foundations established in the 19th and 20th century, and in the midst of dramatic social change, the late 20th century saw women artists fighting to carve out a place for themselves in the artwork. And whether intentional or not, those women paved the way for women artists today. This panel explores and acknowledges the careers of three incredibly important women artists, their lives, work, and contributions to the Native art world, as well as the Western art canon. Inspired by and perhaps encouraged by the Red Power movement of the 1970s and 80s, as well as supported by Western feminism, these three women created a place for themselves in a world where Native art had always been seen as peripheral to fine art. Today, in places like the Metropolitan Museum, Native art is being elevated to its rightful place in the American and contemporary wings, but it is the decades-long perseverance of women such as these that have made that possible. Though they all have achieved a level of fame and acknowledgement in their careers, mentoring, teaching, and sharing their knowledge to a younger generation is at the heart of all of their work. Ensuring that the native art world continues to thrive, as well as stay rooted in cultural traditions, is the example these women collectively provide. They adhere to traditional Native values, ones that privilege community over individualism and heart over individual fame. So first, we're gonna hear from Connie Tsosie Gaussoin.
Thank you.
And we'll let.
Good evening. I would like to start first by saying a prayer, real quick prayer. Pictures. Homa gonoflate homa di ego di huchie di meri huchenaho. Ba e we are chenaho. A here chenaho. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And I am Connie Tsosie Gaussoin, as most of you know, but that's not my real name. I just well know my real name is Mary Constance Tsosie Gaussoin. And I went to school at St. Anne's here in Santa Fe, grew up in Santa Fe. And the slides that you will be seeing behind me are of my family, and then I will get into my work. But this is my late father, Carl Tsosie. He was Navajo from the Navajo Reservation out where the Navajos from the Four Corner area call my people out there the real Navajos, because they're, way out there in the middle of nowhere. It's sort of like the third world country still. Some of them, still don't have electricity. Part of the family, just goes on generators. So this is part of the land that I grew up on. Every year my parents would take us out to the Navajo Reservation. And my uncles, we come from a big military background. I have my beautiful husband who's disabled now, but he used to be our manager of the family's business. And my oldest son was just recently promoted as a colonel in the United States Army and stationed at the Pentagon, and he's now at Fort Hood. And he's also a jeweler. And David Gaussoin, the second oldest son, he's also a jeweler, and he's a paid activist here at the Santa Fe Community Foundation. Some of these ladies here are my aunts. Like I said, we come from a very traditional family, and both at Navajo and Picaris Pueblo. And this is how I grew up, And then my third oldest son, Wayne Nez Gaussoin, he's more or less have jumped the fence, and he does a lot of avant-garde type of jewelry. And he's, my children, have all taken hits for jumping the fence and making avant-garde jewelry. They want us to stay and do only turquoise and coral. This is my grandfather, Hosteen Nez Tsosie, and he's part of the Gorman family, and it was my dad's brother. And I have a daughter, Tasba Gaussoin. She's just graduated from the Institute of American Indian Arts here in Santa Fe. She got her museum degree, and now she's working at the Natural History of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. She's working in the collections. And so she really, is enjoying her job. This is my mother's family from Picaris Pueblo. You can tell they were she always tells us the very, very poor, they grew up at Pickries, and we still have our feast days in that house, and you're all welcome to come up every year in August 10th for our feast day. And the floors used to be all dirt floors, and then we still have the vigas. When you come up, you can see that, It's my grandpa, this is my dad's, my mother's father, and all my relatives here we participate in the Pueblo dances in Pickries, as well as the Navajo Nation. My daughter also went through her Kinalda in the Navajo way on the reservation, and that's me and my oldest brother. We're at the Gallup ceremonial. My parents used to take us out there all the time. And I graduated in high school in New Rochelle, New York. I was a rural traveler. I traveled with the Up With People group and traveled to all the different countries and to all the 57 states here in the United States, and have been very involved when I came back to Santa Fe on various boards. The Santa Fe Opera, the United Way board, just several other boards around town, the Wheelwright and, all these boards that I can't recall right now, but you can probably look it up on the website, on my website. And then this is my bench at home. And the reason I put this up there is because when I first started in jewelry in the late 60s, and seriously took it on in the 70s through my husband's encouragement, and started doing Santa Fe Indian Market here in town. And I got a lot of hits from the male jewelers. They used to tell me and come to the booth, say, "You didn't make that piece of jewelry." And I did. So I had to prove myself. Seems like that's all I do my whole life is proving myself. I enrolled at the Institute of American Indian Arts on Cerritos Road, and Skip Holbrook was one of my instructors, and he put me down as a lab monitor. And, I was there teaching the rest of the students, and so I had to prove myself that my husband didn't make the jewelry, even though he's Anglo. I did it. I made the jewelry, and here's some of my work. I used to draw my designs out first, before I would start. And I would dream about these designs at night when I went to sleep at night. I always kept a notebook next to my bed and had to sketch out what I drew. And some of these are some of my earlier pieces. All I have left are just slides that I, you can tell I did some traditional and a lot of contemporary and a lot of traditional work. I started working in tufa, T-U-F-A, not sandstone, in the early 70s. And I did a lot of wax pieces and a series of my Canyon de Chelly collection series that I did years ago. And, these are just some examples of the married medals. And, I try to, used to teach classes at the 8 Northern Indian Pueblo Council to the adult students and students, at the Wheelwright and other places. And I used to stress the quality of materials of what they use, These are my children, and they're not afraid now. I taught them, don't be afraid, because of all the hits that they would take on trying to do avant-garde jewelry, and because everybody in the art shows, collectors and other people, the art police, they would always say, seriously, you should just work in turquoise and coral. They didn't like us jumping the fence, but like I said, our family took a lot of hits over the years, and that made us strong. I told my kids, you just need to, make what you want, because at least this one old Hopi man came to the booth and told my son David, he says, it doesn't matter what kind of materials you use. Long time ago, we used to just go to the river and pick up rocks, and use that in our jewelry or glass. whatever is available, that's what I always tell my students, just use whatever's available to us. Now here's some of the jump the fence that I made. Most of these are in Germany. The people that collectors, like, this type of work here, And so, I just encourage my family just to keep working and doing their own thing, and they all know how to do traditional jewelry. I made sure that they knew how to make concho bells and that they knew how to make their own stamps, and learning to do a lot of the old style of jewelry. Before they went into doing a lot of the contemporary work. These earrings that I'm wearing, that my son David made, they're shell, and Wayne made this. This is a belt buckle. You just have to be creative how you wear your jewelry. You can, this is with 2 safety pins in the back, and it made a nice pin. These bracelets here, our Pueblo Picaries is mainly, I think, really the only Pueblo now that we have the underground chambers, when we dance and stuff. And so that was a takeoff on what we did, A lot of my jewelry is like, for instance, this ladder here, the ladders that we go down, into the kiva, and the corn stalk, that's what really, the corn that, we harvest every year, not me, my children do, And our traditional bogarts, I don't sell these. I just make them for the artists that want to trade, because I just feel that it's important, that we don't sell these things, We're not into it for that part of it, and some of these other things, these things are in the museum and different collectors' places. I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm going to say it now because I think it's important as an artist. And I don't want to become emotional about it, but you need to know. December 3rd in New York City, my son was doing a show at the National Museum of the American Indian. And the last day before we were checking out, I got crushed in the elevator, and it kind of put a stop to my jewelry making. And, I feel real bad, but I got to take this in a positive way. And, my husband Jerry, now he's starting to help me make some of the jewelry pieces, made a big turn, a circle there, But, I still have the design in my mind, and I still want to keep creating whatever I can, even if I have to ask other people to make the jewelry for me. But, it's really put a damper on my life. Went to the Mayo Clinic. I'm in, 24-hour pain, but, that's life. That's, that had to happen, I guess, in my life as an artist. And I guess that was the biggest hit that I've ever taken in my life. And, so I'm glad I made all these things beforehand and that they're documented, So at least I have these to look at and to see in some of the museums that we have. I still have this one here. This is a Canyon de Chelly. Again, the walls, that we used to go see the canyon in the Canyon de Chelly and out by Chinle, So these are just good memories of what I used to do. I used to judge jewelry over at the Indian Market and at the Heard Museum. And just, just have enjoyed being with all the artists, around and everything else. And I appreciate all the life that I've had, So as being an artist, and I also do sculpting. This is my shop here, and Terrence, photographer, came out and did some of these photographs. You know, I enjoy sculpting. Maybe that's where I'm going to go next, or painting, because I took Linda's class, and you know, she was a hard teacher. But you know, and my late cousin R.C. Gorman, you know, we come from a long line of artists: Navajo rug weavers, painters, you know, pottery makers, you know, governors of pueblos, and everything. You know, so. Anyway, I just thank them for, you know, this year I was honored to be one of the fellow artists here, and this is in your permanent collection, you know, over here at the where Daniel works. Yeah, if you want to see it. And so, yeah, I appreciate you being here this evening, and I'm very honored to have talked to you this evening. My family was invited February 3rd to talk to the museum staff and docents and all of them at the Heard Museum, and we were very honored to do that, you know, so I just appreciate being with you guys here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. I skipped right over Connie's introduction, and she's so humble. And I'm gonna share with you a little bit about her career that I didn't introduce initially and that she didn't speak about. But her extensive career, which started in 1971, in that length, she's exhibited at major Native American museums and galleries throughout the country. Has received awards for her jewelry at many juried art exhibitions such as the Southwestern Association for Indian Arts, Santa Fe Indian Art Market, the Heard Museum Indian Fair, and the 8 Northern Indian Pueblos. Her honors include the Joe H. Quintana Memorial Award for Excellence in Traditional Jewelry at the Santa Fe Indian Market and the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture's Collector's Choice Award. Her jewelry is in the permanent collections of the Museum of Man in San Diego, California, the Millicent Rogers Museum in Taos, the School of Advanced Research in Santa Fe here. If you want to see that, you have to ask Daniel. And the Museum of Indian Arts and Cultures, also here in Santa Fe. She was most recently granted the Living Treasure Award in 2008 from the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture in Santa Fe. Yeah, thank you. So, Linda Lomahaftewa is Hopi Choctaw printmaker, painter, and mixed media artist based in Santa Fe. She specializes in monotype and mixed media. Lomahaftewa has traveled and exhibited throughout the United States, Canada, and Latin America, as well as New Zealand, United Kingdom, Germany, Russia, and China. Besides traveling throughout Europe, China, and Siberia, Lomahaftewa has traveled to hundreds of pre-contact indigenous sites in the United States as part of her ongoing research into ancient Native cosmology and history. She was listed in Who's Who in American Arts and twice Who's Who in American Indian Arts. In 2001, she won the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation's Power of Art Award. After earning her high school diploma from Institute of American Indian Arts, Lomahaftewa received her BFA and MFA from the San Francisco Art Institute. She taught at IAIA for many years, where she held classes in painting, drawing, color theory, and 2D design. Prior to teaching at IAIA, she taught at the University of California, Berkeley, and Sonoma State University. In 2017, she received an honorary doctorate in humanities from the Institute for American Indian Arts. It's been said of her work, she unites the ancient Indian world with the contemporary in her modernistic paintings, and has done a series of abstract landscapes which are considered the most powerful in her body of work. Of her own art, she writes that her imagery comes from being Hopi and remembering shapes and colors from ceremonies and from landscape. I associate a special power and respect, a sacredness with these colors and shapes, and this carries over into my work, she has said. She has participated in innumerable group and solo exhibits, including those at American Indian Contemporary Art Galleries in San Francisco, the Heard Museum in Phoenix, the American Indian Community House in New York City, and the Wheelwright Museum of the American Indian in Santa Fe. She says, "I'm happy that I'm recognized as a Native woman artist," she was quoted, "and that I'm still doing work after all this time. A lot of people give up, but she hasn't. Linda Lomahaftewa.
Thank you for inviting me to be here for this evening and to talk about my work and I guess basically my career as an artist. These are my grandparents from Hopi, my grandfather and my grandmother. And in the slide presentation, I start out with my family and then go into my artwork. So, this is my family on my Choctaw side, my great-grandparents and my grandmother. I knew my great-grandfather, Rismond Bond, who's down in the front, when I was growing up. I was lucky to know him when I was little growing up. These are my parents, Mary and Clifford Lomahaftewa. So my mother is Choctaw, my father's Hopi, and that's where the Lomahaftewa comes from. So I attended the Institute of American Indian Arts in 1962 when it first opened up. And with the encouragement of my family and support, I think that's what's made it strong for me to continue to go on with my artwork. I didn't know that people didn't grow up with that, not having that kind of support. And I was very lucky and fortunate that my family did support me and always called me the artist of the family when everyone else did stuff, you know, and they were all artists, but they always called me the artist of the family, I guess, because I went on to art school. So, so I attended the Institute, and my last year in high school is when I started painting. So I, painted abstract works. I didn't grow up on the reservation. I grew up in Phoenix. So, but my father always took us out to Hopi at the village for the ceremonies. So that's where my inspiration comes from with my work. This is from a screen printing class in textiles with Lloyd Kivanu. This is one of the assignments that we had to do, so it became quite a famous piece, and it's in the collection at the IAIA. Okay, then I go to San Francisco. So after I finished high school, I went to San Francisco Art Institute, where I got my BFA and my MFA. And of course, this is during the Beatles and when I show these slides to my students at school, they always call it the Yellow Submarine. So I had just learned how to do photo transfer, so that's what I used on the canvas. What I didn't know at the time, this is an oil canvas, was that you can't put acrylic or polymer on top of oils, otherwise it'll repel. But so far it's still intact. Some of the faces have kind of faded, but the rest of the painting is pretty much intact. And a landscape, again, I think about the landscape when the mesas, when I'm traveling, or when I think about ceremonies of the Hopi people. There's a big gap of the paintings then going into monotypes, because some of the earlier works were in slide presentation. I mean, really slides. So I had to I haven't been able to transfer all of my slides of paintings into the digital. Yeah. So that's coming. So I'm switching now to monotypes of the work that I do, and I think I started doing monotypes in 1989 or something, and it's a lot faster. You can produce work a lot faster with monotypes because you run it through a press and instant artwork. So I enjoy doing that. So again, using the mesa and spirals for life cycle. So you see a lot of spirals in my work. And the images, the symbols on there are taken from petroglyphs that I made into stencils, and I print and make landscapes out of them. Then I went to northern England, and they have the stone circles, all the different stone circle sites. So that was my inspiration for doing the Stone Circle series. I didn't get to see Stonehenge. That'll come later, I hope. You get to go back and visit. That's another stone circle piece. And this one is an inspiration from one of my grandfather's stories of the four directions and how the Hopi people had to cross four rivers before we got to where we are today. And this is my interpretation of crossing the four rivers. With the monotypes, when you run it through a press, there's still some ink left on the plate, and you can run it through again, and it's called a ghost print. That's what the background is of the faded area, and then you can just layer and collage back on top, and add things when you run it through the press again. I forgot what year this was now. My daughter, who's a collections of curator at the Institute of American Indian Arts, curated a show called Voices from the Mound. And so it was a show about Choctaw people, so I was included in, she asked me to be in the show. And so I started with this piece of my, using the photograph from my Choctaw side of the family and collaged it onto a canvas. It's just a really small piece. This is from the bandolier sash that the men wear of the Choctaw people. And when I started doing these pieces, the Choctaw people were moved to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears. So from Mississippi, which is the original homeland of the Choctaw people, they were moved to Oklahoma. So a lot of the stuff was lost, the cultural ways. My mom didn't talk too much about, when I was growing up about Choctaw people, but and then Grandpa Bond, he could only speak Choctaw, my great-grandfather, and I used to love to just sit in the room and listen to him talk, and he'd read the Bible in Choctaw and sing the hymns, and I always just loved sitting there listening to him. And I always wish I could understand to hear, what he would talk about, because he was always, telling my mom stuff, and because she could speak Choctaw and understand, but none of us learned in school because, the boarding school, you're not supposed to speak your language. So we didn't learn on either one of the sides, Choctaw and Hopi, only a few words and enough to get by. So this would be a Choctaw stickball player. And again, this is a piece that just, researching and reading and looking at pictures and just trying to put things together the way I thought how Choctaw would be. And I had, my mom still has land in Oklahoma, the allotment land of the Choctaw people. It's in southwestern Oklahoma. So it's basically just a big field and lots of trees. So then I discovered, I didn't know, in the younger age about the Mound culture. And that's when I started discovering about the Mound people, which the Choctaw people have, all from the southeastern part of the United States all the way to North Carolina and on up into Ohio. And, I think all the way up into Canada, we've discovered that in our research trips. So again, my interpretation of, how it would be, how the Mound culture would look. On the trip that I took, this was on my sabbatical in 2011, America Meredith and I went to visit the Mound site, starting from Oklahoma all the way to North Carolina. And during the trip, I had already done this painting, but during the trip, I said, "Oh, all my colors are all wrong," because I had never, traveled that part of the United States. And but then, everyone likes it, the yellow and the orange in the background. So this is the Nagamma Mound site in Mississippi, and it's the mother mound site of the Choctaw people. I didn't go up, climb the fence and go up there, but America did. And then this is the pole that they have during a stickball in the what do they call it, the field, stickball field, that they use for marking points. And stickball was really important with the Mound culture because it tells it. I mean, they use it for decision making, battles, and all kinds of things. So I think this was in Arkansas. I'm not sure. I can't remember. And then again, my interpretation of the Mound culture. So again, using stencils, I can ink the stencils and repeat using them over in other prints. And this is a story about the twins that were the moon came and gave the twins a story of the corn, and this is when the corn first started growing with the Choctaw people. And then I use our Choctaw family to collage into a print, again using the Mississippi Choctaw stickball player. I think that's the last one.
I know you all are probably dying to ask questions, and we'll get to that here after we hear from Lillian. So it's my pleasure to now introduce Lillian Pitt. She says, regardless of the medium, my work directly relates to and honors my ancestors, my people, the environment, and the animals. This maintains my link with tradition and acknowledges the many contributions my ancestors have made to this world. Lillian Pitt is a Native American artist, Wasco, Warm Springs, and Yakima from the Big River region of the Pacific Northwest. Born on the Warm Springs Reservation in Oregon, she is descendant of Wasco, Yakima, and Warm Springs people. Her native name, Wakamu, camas root, chosen because it represents, quote, a stubborn plant that won't let go of the earth, referring to the long periods of time she spent wandering the hills during her childhood. Lillian creates innovative works of art using contemporary media and art forms, which draw on over 12,000 years of Native American history and tradition in the region of her birth. As a result of her extraordinary accomplishments, today Lillian is one of the most highly regarded Native American artists in the Pacific Northwest. Among her many awards are the Childs Award for Lifetime Achievement and the Governor's Award of the Oregon Arts Commission, which declared that she had made, quote, significant contributions to the growth and development of the cultural life of Oregon, end quote. Her work is in the permanent collections of the High Desert Museum, the Howley Ford Museum in Salem, Oregon, and the Portland Art Museum, where she also has a gallery dedicated to her art and artistic community. Lillian is best known for her iconography, which include ancestral Columbia River petroglyphs, reanimating the ancient images and affirming contemporary indigenous presence in the region. She also collaborated with the Pendleton Woolen Mills to create blankets representing Columbia River art and culture, and has numerous large-scale works of public art throughout the Pacific Northwest, including several commissioned for the Confluence Project, a collaborative effort of Pacific Northwest tribes, for which she is also a partner and educator. Her upcoming show, Reflections of Our Ancestors, with renowned glass artist Dan Friday, opens at the Stonington Gallery in Seattle, Washington on May 3rd. Lillian Pitt.
Thank you. Thank you to the SARs for inviting me, and it's just a treat to see you again, Linda, and I'm just honored to be with these wonderful women, and I'm real proud of you, Deana, too. You know, you're just amazing. And so I've been blessed with not being trained as an artist. And I've had many friends, many wonderful friends who have been very helpful with me learning specific things. And all it took was, have you tried such and such? No. So how do you do it? And so it's my friends have all been very helpful to me. And but first it's my elders. When I first started doing work of the gorge, I went to the elders to see if it was okay to reproduce these images. And they said, yes, it is. You're letting people know that we're still here. We have not been eliminated. And this is Celilo Falls. This was our special place to go fishing. Salmon was it sustained us spiritually, economically, and people would gather there, and there would be a lot of trading and gambling and finding mates, you know. People came from all over to Celilo Falls. And in 1957, the Army Corps of Engineers built the Dalles Dam, which inundated Celilo Falls and a lot of the fishing sites along the Columbia River. And so then we got in lieu fishing sites and special fishing sites that we can only fish in one specified space, but we're still a sovereign nation. And so Celilo was wonderful, and my dad fished here, and we lost a lot of people in the river, and currently I'm on this board. It's a task force, actually, to build a fisher's memorial for those that have been lost in the rivers, in Columbia River and the tributaries, and as a reminder to keep fishermen safe. And I'd like to add that there are barge companies that come down at night when the men are fishing with their bright lights, and then so a lot of fishermen get blinded and they can't see where they are. And so I've been educated to all these different dangers, and so then that's all I'm talking about is let's do something. Let's educate people. Let's do this. And the other thing is teaching the kids to find out who they are. A lot of people haven't heard about Celilo Falls, and so 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I joined the Confluence Project, which is an educational, informational group that they hired Maya Lin to do 4 or 5 installations up and down the river. An adjunct to that is the education program, and that's what I was involved with. And so we're teaching the kids where they come from, and regardless whether it's Native American. And one time I was at a workshop and saying, we all got to know who we are. This kid waved his hand, I know who I am, I know who I am. And I said, okay, let's hear an example. And he says, I'm Viking. My name is Johan or something like that, and I'm really a Viking. And so, and I says, there you go. We've got people from all nations, whether they're descendants or not. And so teaching these kids, hearing these fun stories has been just life-giving to me. Okay. And this is my main giant petroglyph that she overlooked the village where my great-great-grandmother lived, which is now under the Dalles Dam's floodwaters. But Shaglal is her Indian name, and according to my tribe, and other tribes call her different names. And so she was changed according to a legend, and Coyote was the one that changed her into a rock to watch over people. And so it's good she's high enough, and she didn't get inundated. And some people, some tribes from Yakima, when they go there, it's like going to church. She's that sacred to them. And then that's when I went to my elders and asked them if it's okay if I replicate this. And then they told me that I'm educating people. And so it's been a real strong passion for me to make her in glass and bronze and jewelry and prints and everything I can think of. Okay. Here you can see. And then they're not just regular bronzes. I've added beads. Got to add beads to everything. And feathers. So, okay. Here's some aunties with their wonderful bags, corn husk bags, and Sally bags that are made with bear grass and
Wild rye?
Yeah.
Wild rye, yeah?
Yeah. And so, but they're just beautiful. I just love their thick hair. Okay. And then salmon, as I said, was our way of sustenance. And so I built a salmon drying rack, and these were built all up and down the Columbia River, and the salmon was so prolific at that time that they would put them all on the salmon drying rack, and they would be dry within hours. And so people came from Canada and further north and east. They would bring their buffalo hides, and from the south they would bring their feathers and shells and stuff. And it was a good source of economy for us. Okay. And the way I fire is not typical of well, we didn't work with clay as a tribe or in the Pacific Northwest. And so, but the Japanese people have a kiln that's built into the hill, and it's called the Nagamma Kiln. And so my job when I'm there is to drop tiny pieces of wood directly onto the works below. And they fire up to cone 13, which is about 2,900 degrees Fahrenheit, and let it set for a week, and then there's about 300 pieces in there. And so it's just a lot of fun. Okay. Here's some examples. I don't glaze my pieces. I just bisque fire and let nature do her thing with my work. And because I haven't had many ceramics classes or anything, all the other potters get mad at me because when I put my work in, put it any place. Whatever you want to do, that's fine. And it's off to let Mother Nature take care of her. And so they hate it because all my pieces turn out. And they're controlling everything, they think they're controlling everything. And so, they're using glazes and different things, and I just get exhausted, and so I go the last day, so. And then using porcelain where nothing happens to it, but it just gets a beautiful ghostly quality to it. Okay. Making coyote. This is from the Columbia River. Did a tapestry from a dry point print, Pendleton Woolen Mills. Thought they'd surprise me with a blanket. And they borrowed 3 of my dry point prints, and I didn't know why. I just gave it to them because they asked. And about 3 months later, they presented this to me, and we did a special edition of 30 of them. And it's a tapestry, and so. This is a Hallie Ford. This is the biggest pieces I've ever made, and it was a nice challenge. And I worked in a storefront on Alberta Street, and I never did put them upright. I just worked on them flat, and they all turned out. And so, and my graveyard, I love my graveyard, and so that's where all my bad pieces go. And so, and people want to come and raid my graveyard. No, you can't. And so they're happy. And so, my public art, this is at Portland State University, and I went to Seattle at Boeing Surplus, and they have just all kinds of junk laying around, and they sell it to you. And the middle piece there, that's aluminum. And my fabricator said, you can't really mix aluminum with steel. You can't mix aluminum with bronze. And I said, well, let's give it a whirl. And so we gave it a whirl, and it's still together. Okay. And TriMet, which is our transportation system, had along the anyway, their railroad system that's along with all these artworks at every station that they stop at, and it was about a 3-year process where I was a team leader and had Rick Bartow, Gail Tremblay, and then Lizzie, my niece, wrote the poem for the station, and my fabricator worked on it for about 3 years, and I was team leader. And so I was responsible to tell the people that had to move their homes. And because it was in TriMet's way to put their max line in. And they were very angry, and I get real nervous with angry people, and so I didn't know how to stop it. And then so I said, I know what it is, what it feels like to lose your home. That's happened to so many Indians that have lost their home and their way. And I said, I'm sorry you feel bad. I says, and I feel bad for you. And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, they were bragging that they're going to have the best max stop ever. And so, because I talked to them honestly and with the truth, you don't need many words. You just need to speak heart to heart. And so this was, Rick Bartow did He's Bird, and I did She Who Watches, and Ken McIntosh and Gail did a 7-week workshop with the school in the background, and we all did our share of 7 weeks of giving workshops to these kids, and they wrote poetry on the inside of the sculptures, and so this site does not get vandalized because a lot of the kids are still in the area. Portland State, we did a marker, and because the Pacific Northwest is not Northwest Coast, we can't call them a totem pole because it's not within our culture. And so it's just a marker that is watching over all the students and all the community. And we have bronzes all the way up. It's 3 trees that we put together and use steel to put it together. And then Ken did the final dance, which is the buck and hen salmon in their final dance. And then with the salmon, abstract salmon reaching towards the sky. Okay. And then we did a 44-foot by 19-foot piece in the median in between Springfield and Eugene, and this is honoring the Kalapuya Indians who had to be moved from their land because Eugene, Springfield was very rich to grow things. And so we built a canoe and had put cattails there, and it's a legend based on Coyote and the Frog Sisters. And so it was really a lot of fun because we couldn't, it wasn't a hands-on project. We had to go from place to place to a steel cutter to a steel bender. And then we did make bronze things to put up, and we had to go to about 6 different places. This is for the Oregon Department of Transportation. And when they opened it, it was real fun because they had all these kids on their bicycles. They closed the highway, and they got to bicycle up to it and look at it. And that was the opening, and then we closed it down. Now cars don't even see it, because they're going 70 miles an hour, and then you can't walk up to it. But it does make a statement. I use my ancestry with commitment rings, 18-karat gold. I don't make them myself. I wish I did. But I have a wonderful jewelry caster who does my work for me, and I do them, either give him the drawings. I like finding old boards. As one fella in Washington had these little thin cedar boards, and I get all these things. People are very generous, but then I don't know what to do with them, And so I thought, oh yeah, I could use these in the show. I'll just attach pieces to them. And so when I get the idea, it's real simple. Okay. And this was at the Oregon Historical Society, and that poster, I was real proud of it. Mm-hmm. It was, she was watching over everybody like the petroglyph, and so I asked for it, they gave it to me, and then I had no place to put it because it's about a block tall, and it was behind my sofa, and it stuck out about that much. So Darcy Nicholas from New Zealand said that he had a museum, he could put it up on his museum, so he took it home. So I don't know whether it's still there or not, but that made a fun story for this piece. Okay. Glass. This one client collected glass, and he wanted a piece of Rick Bartow's and mine. And so he paid for us to make glass and take a glass class, and I thought it was a good idea. And then so I started making glass, and Rick did, but it wasn't exciting for him. And so he said, "You just go ahead, just do it." And so it's continuing as such. Okay.
I think that might be the last
Is that it?
one. I think that
Oh, and so I hope she watches over all of you. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you, all three of you. We have a little bit of time.